learned, earned my chops. And then after I had been there quite a while, and typically, as I said, 5 to 7 years, I try to look for a change. But then Monterey County, we were having quite a bit of financial challenges. And then we'd had several disasters. So I kind of had to get the library to a point where I felt comfortable leaving. And then I decided, okay, my children were both out of the house. It was time for me to do something I absolutely really wanted to do. And so I decided to come to this urban library and I wanted to move up the Bay Area. So then, I started looking and I saw Hayward, and Hayward has a lot of the similar things I was looking, which I
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
love the diversity and all of that. So here I am in
So
Hayward.
before you went to Hayward, though, I mean, what motivated you to kind of go from dialogue into kind of the public sector? And what about your education? Yeah, your professional education.
So I actually have a master's in English literature, and I got my master's in library science, and I was at San Jose State. And actually that's how I got to dialogue, because again, as I said, those were the early days of computers. I was doing my, databases class, and my professor, who was Bob
Hmm.
Wagers, sorry, Bob Wagers, really saw how much I appreciated and loved it. And he told me, you should go work at Dialogue.
Uh-huh.
I got into it. But when I moved to I moved to Monterey for personal reasons, and there really wasn't the opportunity to do any kind of high tech work. Though I did continue to work as a contractor for Dialogue for several years, even when I was working at Salinas Public and at Monterey Public. So it's not that I gave it up, but I sort of transitioned, and then I really fell in love with public libraries also. So it was, I've been very lucky. I've loved every job I've done so far. So it was kind of fun. It's been a nice journey for me.
How about that little academic stint you talked about? You said you had some
So,
academic
right. So
background.
when I was at Salinas, and at Salinas, I kind of, when I worked there for about 7 years, and then I'd had my second child, and I decided that it was time to cut back. And anyway, so I thought for a while I'll just stay home with my kids. And then left my job and was like, no, this is not, I cannot not work. I cannot not work in a library. And so I thought, okay, let's try something new. And so that's when I started working at Hartnell College in
Mhm.
at the community college. And then I also started working at Gavilan College. So between the two, I pretty much was working full time again. And so that was actually a lot of fun, because that's also when online learning started. So I got to actually be a pioneer at both places somewhat in with the online classes and, creating online content. It was a lot of fun in both places.
So you make it sound as if it was, well, I won't say easy, but it was, you had some interesting transitions. There must have been some obstacles along the way for you, Shanti. What would you share with folks that you think they could learn from that, overcoming those obstacles?
Well, you know, hmm, it's interesting. Well, one of the things, just like talking about on a personal level, having kids, and women especially often face these challenges. Even my coming to Monterey, and though it's women, but men also face these challenges now. We all try to support our spouses and our partners and all of these things.
Mhm.
And so, you might find yourself in a place where maybe you don't have the perfect situation in terms of what you had imagined your future would be. And so, I think one of the biggest things is being able to sort of reimagine your future, to be open to thinking about things, just trying new things. And to me, that's probably one of the biggest things, just being really open to new experiences. And I won't name any names, but one director I've worked with in my time was just really a very, very difficult director to work with. And I ended up kind of constantly running interference between my director and the staff, and
Mm.
then sort of being communicating the sort of concerns of the library to my director's boss. And so it was not a very exciting
Ooh.
position to be in. But you work through it, you handle yourself with grace and tact and diplomacy as far as you can. And always trying to me, it's that leadership with sort of, what should I say, the human sort of approach, the compassionate approach to leadership. To me, that's one of the biggest things, always taking that compassionate approach to leadership. And it doesn't matter where you are, if you keep that in mind, then it does sort of help you through it. Be who you are and always try to find, where can you shine, and even in these situations. So one thing I actually love to say is, I'm one of those people, no matter what the huge projects are, I always need some kind of tangible results. Like I love short-term results. So I always keep small projects going at all times. And I think that's one of the biggest things for everyone to think about, that you might have huge projects, but do the small things that give you immediate results, that make you happy, that give you that, well, just immediate gratification, which really does encourage you along. So I think those are some things to always think about as you're working.
That's good advice. This morning we had our leadership challenge cohort together and we talked about project management, but I think that little bit of advice of having those smaller projects that you can manage and finish and complete and get the satisfaction out of that. So for those of you who are joining us right now, we're talking to Jayanti Addleman, who is the Director of Library Services at Hayward Public Library. By the way, she happens to be president of the California Library Association. Before she was at Hayward, she was at the county library and Monterey County Free Library, and where she stayed for 12 years. She's, as you heard, worked in community colleges and private industry. Jayanti, you've won some awards in your career, including the California Library Association's Outstanding Librarian in Support of Literacy and Monterey County's Outstanding Woman. And this one came with a cash gift, I understand. ALA's Love My Librarian Award. So how come you don't have any of those plaques out there behind you on the fireplace, or, a badge or something? What did you learn from all those? What do you do with all those honors and gifts?
So this is actually pretty hilarious. I really, the awards, I find plaques really kind of, I don't know what to do with them. I will say though, I have a lot of photographs in my house that basically reuse the frames that some of people. So I love to just take that out and put my own photographs in there. I do that a lot. But it was funny, the I Love My Librarian Award. They sent me two plaques, not one, two. And oh, this is like really difficult. And these are not even the type of plaques where you take, oh, like a framed certificate. It was an actual plaque.
Oh,
I actually, it's COVID. I don't work in my office. I'm mostly working from home, but I did take that plaque and some of my previous plaques to the office and hung them up over there. So, they're there. No one can see them, but they're there.
well, we're talking about leadership today too. And I wonder, do you have a philosophy of leadership? And in that philosophy, how does it help you maybe hire people or assess their contribution or potential?
Oh, that's really interesting. So, I'm one of those people who really looks for soft skills. I really
What do
value.
you mean by soft skills? What do you mean?
So soft skills are those that, well, empathy, that, being able to communicate with your co-workers. Communication is huge, but that empathy, being creative, being open, receptive, I love that. So even when I hire, I really look for potential rather than just, what does it say on paper. I hear a lot of people, they say it's kind of an interesting philosophy. I really enjoy seeing people who have tried different things. To me, that I really value that in people that come, especially, if you're in a very large system where you can specialize, then it's a whole different thing. By and large, I've always been in systems where we need generalists. So I really do like to see a wide variety of experiences. And I really encourage people, look for those opportunities in your own organization when you can help others, and be sure to put that on your resume, showing the breadth of your interests and your capabilities. So that's really something I would say I really like to see a wide, and because you never know what's going to come up. It's like COVID. who knew? But you
Right.
know, there's some people who've been thriving in this sort of environment, and some who not so much. So
How
it
has COVID affected your work now? I think you started in Hayward, and within a year, I guess, well, you opened the library. You should talk about that a little bit, but also then COVID hit. So how did that impact you?
Oh, so the last 2 years have been a real roller coaster for me. So, you know, I came into Hayward with the part of my job was to open up the library, and which we did, and it wasn't fully completed, but we just said, you know, this is something that was supposed to be a good thing for the community, and it was so delayed that it was really becoming a negative. And I said, you know, this enough is enough. The staff were also quite disheartened. The old library had been closed, it had been demolished. They were kind of, you know, basically at loose ends. So it's first thing we did was we said, okay, let's go ahead, let's get services started. We don't need a building. We'll just, you know, so we took over a whole bunch of rooms in the city hall. We partnered with the Veterans Center and just sort of found places to provide service. And that was really very nice to see how staff just rose to the challenge and did very well. Then, of course, we got the library open again. My philosophy was if we've got enough space, we've got the books, we've got the computers, we have bathrooms. I mean, bathrooms, of course, were critical, and it's a safe building. So let's go ahead and open it. So there were parts of the building that we could are still not open, you know, or won't be even when we reopen, won't be open to the public. But we had a building, and that was really wonderful. But then 6 months later, again, we had to close because of COVID. So, you know, COVID's been a challenge, but again, as I, you know, what I was saying, it's how do you rise to the occasion?
Mhm.
And to me, COVID, and it's very cliche to say, yeah, every challenge is an opportunity, but it is. But to me, more than it's just an opportunity, it's an opportunity for immediate results, but also long-term planning. So things, putting this challenge into use, into planning for the long term. And
Mhm.
so what is it? What changes that we make now will we continue beyond? What have we learned in this process that we can continue on? And so that's been very interesting working with staff. My staff, I mean, Hayward staff, just amazing, has been so creative, just so willing to step up, and really they've been through so much, so many changes in the last 2 years, and they've just been really have stepped up, and we've been really working towards getting you know, just doing new things, one of which was like the bookmobile. I had, you know, when I came into Hayward, because a lot of people were like, well, you've got this big, huge, new, fancy library in downtown. What about the rest of the city? And so it's like, okay, we can talk about getting more branches, but that's kind of a big, difficult project. So one of my
Yeah.
first goals was let's get a bookmobile, because a bookmobile can really make your presence felt and can get services out.
Was
And
this before the library was opened or during the opening?
I was talking about this at the same time. I mean,
Okay.
literally, it's just like, yeah, we got to start thinking about a bookmobile for Hayward. So very early on, before we had even opened, I talked to a donor, and he said, yes, I'll give you the money for a bookmobile. So that was really awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, but the thing was, because we were in the middle of opening a building, it was very hard to say we'll do two projects at the same time. So I said, let me get the building, let's get going on that, and then we'll talk to the donor. Of course, we had just got the building open. I was still doing all this, you know, because we were going through our teething pains, and we closed. And so that's when I said, okay, we're closed, let's go for the bookmobile. So I went and talked to the donor, and now we are in the process. So we should have the bookmobile by July. But that's the kind of thing, you know, it's like, okay, we wanted it. If we had had the bookmobile during COVID, would have been great. We didn't, but, you know, let's figure it out. Let's do this and think about the long term. And so we are in the process of doing that. It's just sort of fun to think about this, you know,
Sure.
always thinking long term. Yeah.
So one of the dilemmas I've had, and I'm going to ask you how you've handled this, is that sometimes you get into a situation where you've got this great master plan, a strategy, and things happen, right? And so how do you manage your, giving yourself and your organization time for those serendipitous occasions or those unforeseen circumstances to take advantage of? Do you throw the plan away, or you modify the plan? How have you handled that as a leader?
Well, sometimes you just say, okay, let's put this aside and respond. It's like a crisis. You have to deal with a crisis. And
Mhm,
actually, Monterey County, and you've seen Monterey County, Martin,
mhm,
I've been through multiple disasters in Monterey County. We
mhm.
had multiple floods, fires. I remember evacuating Big Sur Library. 9 o'clock, we got the call, you need to evacuate the library. We all went, we just packed it up, and we walked out at 5 o'clock. We had the whole library evacuated. Every computer was out, every book. It was really amazing.
Wow.
So, you sometimes you just say, okay, we got to do what we got to do. And then once you've got through that first moment of crisis, then you come back and say, how does this fit into what is the next step? And how is it going to fit into what my current plan is or whatever my strategic plan is? And so, really, excuse me, thinking about it that way. But, you always deal with the crisis at that moment. You have,
Mhm.
yeah. So sometimes it's just like, put it on hold and then take the next step.
I want to invite folks to submit questions in the chat room. We can keep our conversation going, but as questions come in, I'd like to be able to then maybe Christine can help us say we have a couple of questions here for you. But this is a dialogue, a conversation with you. You have accomplished much in your career. It's not over yet. Who knows what the next step is? I've had somebody say to me that people in the library leadership positions should be thinking beyond the library, maybe looking at city manager or running for office. Is that in the cards for you, Jayanti?
Well, I'll admit, when I was in Monterey County, I very seriously thought about running for Board of Supervisors. But the seat I was particularly interested in, the person whose place I wanted to take retired before I was ready.
Ah,
So someone else came in, and I didn't want to replace her. So I,
let me ask you something though before you go there. Uh, what gave you the chutzpah that you could run for supervisor? What was it? Was it something that you saw opportunity, or was it because you thought that there was a need for your style of leadership or some other reason?
I just love the politics of, of running municipalities. I really find it fascinating. And as I said, I love to look for new things. And I thought I'd be good. I knew the supervisors very well. I knew the CAO in the county. I knew everyone over there very well and had been there long enough. I had been around. One of the other things about, because of the nature of the library at Monterey County, I really got to know the entire county
Mhm.
so well. I mean, really, again, 3,000 square miles, that's not
Yes.
easy for most people to know, but the library gave me that opportunity. I was on the road so much, from the most remote Parkfield and Bradley up all the way to, Aromas, just coming all the way up to the San Benito County border. So I really felt I knew the county very well, and I thought I'd be good, and I could, at least I would bring a fresh approach, but also I knew the inner workings of the county pretty well. So I thought it'd be kind of good. But, now that's not in the works. So I'm quite happy at Hayward. I plan to be here for a while. And there are a lot of people who've gone from libraries on to really other things. Yeah, I mean, for example, Monique at Palo Alto. Then we have Kim, who was at the city of Monterey, and then she became community service. I mean, she really did a lot in
Mhm.
Monterey. And so, there's like a Vicky who's from Porterville. She's on the school board. So there's lots of different people who really do run for political office, but also go into other jobs. And Bill Sanwald, who I really enjoy working with, who I was his mentor at Eureka, and he went into, I think it was public utilities for a while. So
Mhm.
it's really fun to see people trying different things and really see how you can transfer those skills. And library skills, really, working in libraries, you have so much exposure to so many different types of situations that I think it prepares you very well for a lot of things. And I highly encourage it. The other thing I also say is, by running and getting on school boards and all, libraries in many places have a real challenge with credibility sometimes. A lot of, especially people in leadership, tend to still see us as books. And then and I mean, I've been in libraries for so long. When computers were coming in, from then people were saying, oh, computers, there'll be no more books in 2 years, 5 years. I mean, it's been insane. And even now, they're constantly saying that. And it's not true, but who knows it besides the librarians? So it's really nice if you can get on boards and start with something simple like, I don't know, you have commissions, get on your commissions in your city or in your county, or run for school board if you can. There's just lots of places you can be, water board, airport board. I mean, there's just many places you can get out and really do some speaking for libraries, and I just encourage that so much. Yeah,
That's
again,
wonderful.
getting on nonprofit boards,
Right.
that's another way to do it. Just get on to whatever, some your favorite charity, then get onto their board, get the word out.
So potential congresswoman or assemblywoman, not
I
yet.
I wish, but I'm really happy to see that we have now a vice president who's a woman of color and biracial. So it's actually pretty exciting to see that, because I know there's many people out there who talk about their concerns, whether if you're BIPOC, whatever, that it's
Mhm.
hard sometimes, and some places it's worse than others. But I think the world is getting better, so don't let it hold you back. And no, I'm not going to run for assembly or for Congress or
Not
Senate
yet.
or any such thing. No, I'm happy with my local work.
So you've made a decision and became elected president of the CLA, the California Libraries. What's on your agenda? What kind of leadership do you want to bring, and what's on your agenda?
So, like as many of you know, CLA, one of our challenges right now is financial, but also, really getting the word out. For me, I really, really focused on inclusivity. I love CLA because CLA doesn't just represent one type of library. It represents public libraries, it can academic, school. It represents a lot of different libraries and library staff and speaks for them. And so I really do love that. We do advocacy for all kinds of libraries. But my goal really was the whole diversity, inclusivity. And so, for example, we're doing a lot of the committee appointments, and I've really made a point of trying to be conscious of looking at things through that the EDI lens, the equity, diversity, inclusivity lens, really looking at that. So not just from a racial, ethnic kind of view, but also from the point of making sure we include academics and making sure we include school libraries. So I'm really, really trying to do that, and it's been very important to me to have that. Rural is huge, and anyone who's known me knows how much I have pushed for rural libraries. Even when I ran for the board, originally, it was, really making sure rural libraries have a voice.
Mhm.
And though I'm in Hayward, I'm in an urban area, I have so much. I mean, rural libraries have a very special place in my heart. And so that's definitely very
Do you
strong.
still have positions to fill on committees?
Oh, I do. And anyone who's interested, just please reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. Yeah.
Great. We have a question from Jennifer Hooker, and she says, do you have any regrets about not doing something in your career?
Ah, wow. I'm, not sure. I'd have to really think about that. I think I've always been very happy in my career. I'm one of those people who, as I said, I've always loved every job I've been in. So I really do love that. Sometimes I wish I'd taught at the university level, and maybe I will still do that. I really do love teaching. So I feel sad about having given up the teaching. So I think I'll go back to that at some point. But, seriously, I'm not sure that I have any regrets about something I didn't do but someone will say something and then I'll say, oh, yeah, I wish I had done that.
Sometimes it's easy to forget the things that didn't go so well. You want to
Yeah,
just move on.
yeah,
So, hey,
exactly.
one of your responsibilities, I think, as a leader is to kind of help mentor the next generation, right? So if you're going to do that, or if you are already doing it, what advice do you have for people who want to be the next I Love My Librarian award winner, or the next director of a library system such as Hayward. What advice do you have for folks if you're mentoring them?
So I would say don't be afraid of putting yourself out there, really. So one of the things I actually talk about is when you're, you were talking about challenges I faced in the past. So many people probably don't realize, but I'm really something of an introvert. It's very hard for me to socialize and talk to people sort of for myself. I'm not shy, but I don't like to talk about myself so much. And so it's very easy for me. I can go and talk about the library, but it just is very hard. So that was actually one of the challenges I did find when I was applying for jobs is I don't build those networks. You'll see people build networks very easily, and I have a very hard time doing that. And so really, trying to think about building your networks, I think that really is something very important in terms of moving ahead in your career. And but also from the other side, I would tell leaders to be careful about only hiring from within your network,
Mm,
because that's one of the challenges also people do face, especially if you're coming from a small rural system where you tend to be more isolated, really thinking about where people are coming from. So that's very important. And so building networks is good. I would talk about, how you interview, really thinking about what do you want to do next? What skills do you want to develop, or what skills do you want to focus on? That's something that's really, really important as you're going forward. And really just being a director is not necessarily the end all, be all and end all. It's about, are you doing something you love? So,
right.
like I will say, I've had opportunities for jobs that pay much better than the one I might have currently been in, but it didn't necessarily match exactly what I wanted to do. And so you really make those decisions
Mhm.
about how much. And to me, it was always, obviously I needed to be paid, I needed the money, but you make sure you're doing something you really love. Really look for places where you see yourself being happy, because
Mm.
that's critical, yeah, in the process.
And in terms of building your network, are you active in social media? Is that a thing that you like to do, or?
I will say social media is the savior for introverts, because no, truly, I kid you not. I mean, and you talk about people getting off Facebook, but if you're an introvert, Facebook is a very easy thing, because you can talk and say a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to say face to face. So really using social media is really important. But it's not to say that social media is the only way. For example, our previous CLA president, Hillary Thayer, she was never on Facebook, and or at least she wasn't during the whole election process. I don't know if she had ever been, but Hillary wasn't, and it didn't affect her ability to win election and all of that. So you need to use whatever you have. I'm sure, Hillary is very well known. And so I'm sure she has a strong network. But if the way you need to build a network is through social media, then do that. Especially if you're an introvert or if you're in a rural, isolated area, use social media to your advantage. I would definitely say that. So
So you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram. Are you,
I'm
where else can we find you?
I'm on Twitter. I'm not very active on Twitter. I will say, even though I'm on Facebook, a lot of the posting and all I do is very personal, in the sense of I love cooking. So everyone knows that, and they see me cooking and posting all my food all the time. So, that kind of, but it at least gives people a way to get to know you. And that is important. So, and LinkedIn. So some of these things I definitely use and am present on. Yeah.
May I talk to you a little bit about gender? And here's my question to you. So the library profession is predominantly female. Um, and I was talking to somebody earlier, and I think there's a professor who used to go by the name of Kathleen Heim. She is now Kathleen Heim de la Pena, and she's at Louisiana State University. And early on in my career, I remember seeing a report that she wrote on the demographics of the library profession, who's going to library school and why. And then it was the average library school student was a female who was returning from a profession that maybe she left earlier to start a family, and tended to be 39 years old and was most likely white. Guess what? The most recent report that she did a few years ago, a couple of years ago, says basically the same thing. Okay. So what is it about our profession that we are attracting females, but it appears that in some cases, the leadership in some of the larger libraries, take an example in California, are men. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, we actually have a lot of strong women in leadership positions in California now. And, whether you take Los Angeles County, whether you have Sky, you have Rivka, we have some very good, very strong people. Also among the men, we also have many minorities. And so, if you have Miguel Acosta, you have, San Francisco, Michael Lambert. So, so it's definitely changing. And it's funny, you talk of stereotypes. I remember years ago, one of my colleagues saying, oh, you're at a California library conference because you have bad haircuts and comfortable shoes. And the men have beards and ponytails. And I was like, and it was really kind of hilarious. It was very sad, and hilarious, but it is changing. And one of the things I will say is also it's because of the pay has been improving. We were paid pretty badly in the old days. And so as the pay is improving, I mean, men have traditionally been the, breadwinner. And so, men have tried to go towards a higher paying jobs. It's sort of, and I might be oversimplifying, but that is part of it. It's like even nurses were tended to be women, and now they get paid so much better. There are a lot more men in the profession. So I think that's definitely been one of the things, that we are getting paid better, but it's also getting away from that stereotype of the caring, nurturing person is the woman. There are men who are such super excellent children's librarians. And in the past, it was not something that was, really kind of easy for a man to do, even if he wanted to do it. So I think just, we are changing enough. I think we need to continue to do that, being very conscious. Again, it's that looking at things when we're hiring, looking through that EDI lens, not just with race and, race and ethnicity, but looking at gender, looking at all these other things, and I mean, California libraries, at the California Library Association, it was several years ago, we did the drag queen story time. But that idea of, we're not just going to accept differences, but that we're going to celebrate differences. We want to celebrate those differences. We want to bring those other viewpoints in. So I think that is really important, and I feel our profession is changing very well, nicely. Especially in California, we definitely have that advantage. We really do have diversity. We have the diverse pool also that we can draw on. And so that's really wonderful. And, I think it is changing. And I really encourage men, women, everyone, whatever, cisgender, whatever your, background, or whatever, however you identify yourself, now's the time, and really make your mark. We are ready for you.
That's great. We
Yeah.
have 94 people listening to this webinar. Our conversation, I should say, is not a formal webinar. So, one of the things I think happens, first, I want to encourage people to ask questions, but while the questions are coming in, I wondered about, well, we've heard stories, and I guess if you watch the news all the time, it just reinforces this whole idea that we're a polarized community. It's blue, it's red, it's whatever. In a leadership position, it's easy to get caught up in that, right? Or you avoid it. What's your, how do you handle that? What do you do?
So, it's really interesting, and libraries have traditionally been somewhat liberal. And it is kind of interesting that, when Trump got elected, one of the things that really concerned me was, and I've said this, people have heard me say this, is literally several librarians went batshit crazy. I mean, there were things they were posting and writing and about the need that we have to do these things, and we need, and it's like, calm down, slow down. This is a democracy. This is how democracies work. Sometimes the parties we support win, and sometimes the parties we support lose, and we might not agree with the viewpoint, and it definitely impacted us the way things happen. But we really need to always be aware of the need to be open to ideas and to really discuss things with everyone. So I'll tell you, one of the things I did when I was in Monterey County towards the very end, I think it was probably my last year over there, or the last year and a half, I'd started this Community Matters series, which was discussing, I'd bring people with different viewpoints, and we talked, but it started with Me Too. That's correct. We started it with Me
Okay.
Too, and that was our first one, was about, sexual harassment and all that of women. And so we did this whole series of things. And then the one we had done was on gun control.
Hmm.
And we were very careful. We really had people from all sides always come. And so when we did gun control, I had invited someone from the NRA to come and be on our thing. And he was, well, and I said, I promise you, we will give you a chance, and there will be nothing, no one's going to stop you from talking. And so he did come, and he brought his whole contingent of NRA supporters. It was actually wonderful. So what happened was, and I'll say, because we were concerned, we did a lot of very controversial topics. So we had made a rule that no one can bring any placards or signs in. If you brought it, you had to leave it in the lobby. You couldn't bring it into the room where we were having a meeting. And so, when we were doing the whole the NRA, the gun rights thing, I remember there were this young people walking by, and I was saying, do you want to come on in? We're going to be having this discussion today. And they said, oh no, we support gun rights. We don't want to be there. And I said, well, why would you assume that? She was like, oh, y'all will never let us speak. And I said, why? And that just sort of, to me, was very, very disappointing, that this is the perception of the library. Anyway, so they came in, and all of the NRA people were wearing their NRA t-shirts. And so at the end of and it was really amazing. And I admit, the gentleman had all his, points. He had the NRA, like their, words written down, and he was reading them out in the thing. But it was actually really good discussion. And in the end, everyone agreed that we all have the same intention of protecting our children, protecting families, and protecting rights. So, it was just a beautiful discussion. And after that, some of the NRA people came and first of all, there were two things. One is, one of our extremely liberal people came to me and said, you said we cannot have placards. These people were all wearing t-shirts. And I said, why didn't you wear your t-shirt? You could have worn your t-shirt, so, but it was, and then the NRA people really came and talked to me and said how grateful they were. And several said, we're going to get library cards. And to me, that was one of my high points in my career, that here someone actually changed a whole group of people, their perception of the library, and got them in. So, there's just some things we have to be aware of, and being open and really putting our own, biases aside when we are serving the public, and especially when we are making policy. Really.
Well, congratulations. That's a wonderful example.
Yeah.
So we did get a question here, and then we're getting close to our 45 minutes. And I wanted to just tell you what the question is. And this is from Ann Wilson. She says, can you speak about getting involved with CLA? What are the different ways to do that? What would you suggest to them?
So, first of all, I really invite all of you to be members. And if you can encourage your organization to become institutional members, that is really, really important. Just being a member. Then the other thing is just volunteering for committees. We have, especially conference time, we have so many needs, so many committees. We really do need you. Then there is like the legislative and advocacy committee. We have the leadership committee. We have bylaws. So just depending on what your interest is, there are so many places we can put you. We need your help. So committees are a great way to get involved. but just, attending some of when you come to conference, see what we are doing. And even though it's a virtual conference, we're going to have a totally exciting, wonderful conference this year. So join us, come to the conference, talk to people. It's a great way to network. We have the sort of awards committee. So there's just so many opportunities depending on what your interest is. And that's a really good way to get involved in CLA. You can talk to any of the board members, any of the committee members, and they're really happy to talk to you. We have a membership committee, Eric Berman from, Alameda County leading it. And he's just been amazing. He has all these meetups and really fun things that people do. And so that's, again, another way, just get involved, go to some of the meetups, have fun, do a bike ride with the group, not now, but normally. Have a virtual happy hour, but there's just all kinds of things. And as you get more and more sort of, you'll get to meet people and understand, and it's really nice. Running for office, even if you know that, okay, I'm going to lose, but do it, get your name out there. It is important,
Yes.
don't just go in with the thought that I'm going to lose I'm going to win the very first time I run. You might, and if you have a really good platform, you might. But a lot of us have very similar platforms sometimes. So really trying to make sure you kind of build those, get your name out there. But
Right.
yeah.
I think the answer is yes, but one of the people asked if there is committee information on the CLA website.
There is, you will see at least the names of all of the committees. It's not very current. That's one of the challenges. That's been one of my biggest challenges, is really making sure we get all of the positions filled. And I've been doing that pretty actively. So, but you will see the names of all of the committees. And, even if you contact, if it's slightly outdated, they will get you to the right person. Just contact me. You can simply contact me. You can contact me through Facebook, or you can contact me. My work email, I'll just tell you, is, or actually, let me give you the easier one, is to do jayanti@gmail.com. And I
Okay.
use that for my CLA work. And so you can just contact me there. That's an easy one. And I'm happy to talk to you or see, if we can place you in appoint you to some committee.
Can I put that in the chat box so people can see
Of
it?
course. Yes.
Good.
We also have a few questions in the Q&A as
All
well.
right, let's take them then. Let's take them.
All right. You ready, Jayanti? Okay, so what did you learn while working at an academic library, and why did you return to public libraries?
So I really, probably one of my favorite groups is teens and young adults to work with. I really enjoy working with teens and young adults. So that was kind of fun for me to, be in that situation. And what did I learn from being in an academic library? So I wasn't in a university library, and I know university libraries are very different, but in a community college setting is well, it's just that teaching. I love teaching. It's been really fun. So to me, that was really great, that to have that opportunity to be a librarian as well as a teacher. That was just I thought, what could be better than that, getting to do both, two of my favorite things. So that was wonderful about academic libraries. Also, the amount of time you get to prepare and stuff is a little bit different. In public libraries, we work under a lot of pressure. Though, community colleges, I admit, a lot of them have budget constraints and don't have that so much. But, like in university libraries, I know that there's time set aside for working for other things, which in public libraries, you're constantly go, 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 go. So, it's definitely the pace and the way you do things is different in academic and in public. But it just depends on what your interest is. I loved it. I really loved that also. Yeah.
Great. More
Yeah.
questions,
All right.
Christine.
Yes, and someone's asking you, can you give an example of small projects that when you were talking about for great distractions?
So simple things like maybe organizing a program. I think that's one of the best things you could possibly do, is say, I'm going to do a craft program. I want to do a story time. I mean, that's a really simple, immediate type of project, but those are really great. A book club, say you want to lead one of the book club meetings for your book club, that if you, and most libraries have book clubs. If they don't, what you could do is a one time, say, I'd like to do a pilot project, it's funny, in fact, with my staff, I had been talking about doing like happy endings book club. And it was hilarious. One of my staff pointed out to me, happy endings is not the right thing to say. And I was like, oh, well, and so anyway, we had a lot of discussion, but I got so busy, I didn't quite go with that. But I thought, okay, happily ever after or something, even it's not going to be a romance book club, but a book club which has, ends on a positive note. So, doing something like that is a really nice thing. In fact, when I started the Community Matters series in Monterey County, that was part of my thing. I love to have projects again, as I said. And so, we paced them. I did them at my own pace, and it was really, we ended up doing them actually quite often, like every 2 months or so. But it was a really wonderful thing to do that. So yeah, so that I would say some of things like that. If you'd have a newsletter, writing articles for a newsletter, those are really small projects, but really programming is probably one of the best ways to get immediate feedback, and it's very gratifying.
That's some great practical advice. Other questions, Christine?
Yes. So Elizabeth Gray asks, library services tend to get very complicated, even more so during COVID. How do you keep things simple, and both in terms of messaging to the public and in the work with library colleagues?
So keeping things, it's really about making choices, and also for the library director to be the one who's willing to, you need someone who's willing to stand up and say, if in my case, I've been very lucky. My city manager is extremely supportive and, has really sort of has listened to what the library has to say about the different things and about reopening and services. But if you have a city manager or a county CAO or whatever who's really pushing you to open when you don't have the staffing, when you don't have the face shields and all, it is very, very hard. So really it requires a certain amount of strength and gumption to be able to stand up and say no. It's also, even when it's not a COVID, and I realize COVID is a very special situation, but under normal circumstances, being able to say no to project. And I know people I have supervised will tell me that I have zero ability to say no, and I take on projects all the time with great enthusiasm. And I'm like teaching myself to say no. But then I also, one of the things, even if I do take on new projects, I will fully understand if staff say to me, in that case, this is getting pushed a little bit back. And that's how it is. And so being able to have those conversations with yourself or with your director about, well, we're going to do this, then this one, we're not going to say this gets thrown off completely, but we're going to push this back. So I think that being able to make those choices and prioritize, again, cliche, but very, very important, just being able to do that. And
We
really,
have,
sometimes
sorry, go.
no, I was just going to say, being kind to yourself. We tend to really set such, unrealistic goals for ourselves sometimes, and just being able to say, no, I need to take some time off. I need to stop, and really doing that. And you get, get leave for a reason. So you might feel real pride that you have, whatever, 365 hours saved up in your leave bank, but you should use it.
That's good advice. So we have time for one more question. Christine?
All right. Any advice on how to deal with challenges such as homelessness and mental health in the public library setting?
Oh my gosh. Now, this is, of course, a full hour, So
Sorry.
it's not an easy thing, really working. This is one thing that libraries cannot do on their own. We have to have partners in this.
Right.
So really just reaching out to your partners. If you're in a smaller library system or something, really checking with what the larger libraries are doing. Like some have social workers. Most of us can't afford to do social workers, can't get social workers in our libraries. But some of it is also accepting and knowing what level of, what should I say, service to the homeless or unhoused you are willing to provide. That is really important, that what are you willing to do and what are you willing to allow in your library. So to me, I always see libraries as the de facto daytime shelter for homeless people. There's no question. But then you need to decide, what is it, what will we allow, what is, can someone come in with a huge cart? No, I'm sorry. No matter how much you want to, and I understand this is your life, but you cannot bring it into the library. We just had a discussion in our own library, about this, where in the rain, where someone was hanging a blanket to dry right in front at our library door. And it's like, so we're kind of trying to balance this, being compassionate, that here's a homeless person who needs their blanket, but this is our library entrance, and there is the problem with smells and hygiene and all these other things. And also, it's intimidating for other people. We have the challenge of human waste around our libraries, and really, and especially urban areas, it is a huge challenge. In the Bay Area, it is, I mean, I can't even begin to tell you what a challenge it is, but it is something, really working together and really reaching out to your city or your county and seeing what the options are. Most of the police departments have someone specifically assigned to working with unhoused individuals. Make them your friend, talk to them. Same thing with people with mental health challenges. Really make, and I know that the police, law enforcement isn't necessarily, getting the best sort of, what should I say, press at this time, but there are many good people on the force, and many of them are really trained and able to help you. Or again, social services, just find out who is that group, who is that person you need to contact, and just setting your goals as well as your limits. Those are the two things you really need to think about. You want to help the homeless, unhoused people are our patrons just like anyone else, and really thinking about it.
Well, Jayanti, I want to thank you so much for helping us launch our series here on my leadership journey. I'm sure that everybody will is appreciative of the sharing that you gave to us, your experience. I'm sure there are people who will be wanting to contact you and get some further advice. Thank you for sharing your email address with us as well. And to everybody who's joined us today, we had a record crowd here of 94 people, and I want to thank all of you for attending. This is going to happen every month. Check our Developing Libraries, Developing Leaders in California Libraries website, and you'll get more information on that. But we'll see you again next month. And again, thank you, Christine, for helping out, and thank you, Jayanti, again, and best wishes to all for a wonderful, great 2021. Thank you, everybody. We'll
Thank
see
you
you next
so
time.
much. And stay safe during the Super Bowl. Don't do anything silly, I'll tell you that. No, but thank you so much for having me, Martin. And thank you, Christine. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much, too. Bye-bye.